I'm David Holzman. I was born in Oceanside, New York. I grew up in Brooklyn, New York, and I'm a teacher in Simsbury, Connecticut and Central Connecticut State University. Well, as I said in my statement, I grew up in New York City, and one of the most favorite things to do for me was to go to the museums. As a young boy, I was taken to museums by my older siblings. I was the youngest of four, and we had great museums. The Metropolitan Museum of Art, the Museum of Modern Art. So I spent a lot of time there looking at all different cultures, and then I'd go home and read about them and look at art books. And when I got into high school, I was on my own, and I would go there and look at the world's art, and then try to get home as fast as I could on the subway and make stuff of my own. And I've just kept doing that ever since. Whenever I'm in a new city, or if I've moved to another part of the country, I try to find out which museums are there, and I you know, in this area, the Wadsworth Atheneum. One of my favorite museums is the New Britain Museum of Art. I love their collection, and I love looking at work in real life, and then work in reproduction. So I'm constantly looking at a lot of art from all different sources. Well, there's a lot of artists. A lot of the work I looked at that I was just referring to in the museums is anonymous. Indigenous work from different cultures like Oceania, Africa, Asian cultures. You don't. A lot of those artworks aren't identified with specific artists. But then when I was in my teenage years and my college years, I became very interested in German Expressionism. Picasso was always a great favorite of mine. Later on, I became interested in an artist called Frans Mazariel, who was an early 20th century expressionist from Belgium, who made woodcut novels. And his work was really what got me started on making woodcut narratives. So that was in late 70s, early 80s. And I kept looking at all kinds of other artwork, a lot of sculptors, a contemporary sculptor, Martin Puryear, who's probably around 70 years old, right around 65, 70 right now. He is a great artist. I saw an incredible exhibit at the Museum of Modern Art a few weeks ago on Gauguin. And Gauguin was a great example, not only as a painter, but as a woodcut printmaker and as a sculptor. So being in a room full of his work in woodcut printmaking and wood carving was just like coming home. I just kept turning around and seeing things that were inspiring to me. So there's just so much that I can look at. Well, I don't like to be pinned down. I am an object maker. I like making things. It's not conceptual. It is narrative. I'm interested in surrealism. I'm interested in expressionism. A lot of the kinds of things that I'm inspired by are outsider art, folk art, but considering that I have an MFA and I've been trained in art school and my background, it's kind of hard to use that label for my work, and I certainly don't feel like that would be appropriate. So I think that some kind of primitive surrealism is probably a good way of describing it if you had to in a phrase. Well, the woodcut printmaking started when I was about 17, and I'm 60 now, so it's been going on for quite a while. And that's been a constant. That woodcut printmaking has gone on in one form or another. I started making books in the late 70s, woodcut novels that told stories without words. There's been about 8 or 9 of them of various lengths since then. And then in the late 80s, early 90s, I started to carve reliefs. The reliefs were meant to go on the wall. There's been some freestanding sculpture since then, but most of the work has been meant to go on the wall. The carvings grow out of paintings. Recently, in 2011, I started a series called The Book of which is a series of watercolor paintings from which a lot of these carvings that I'm looking at now are coming out of. So I like to generate imagery in a simple method, drawing or painting, and then break it down and try to figure out how to make it into a relief carving. The relief carvings that I'm showing in this exhibit are all made from many pieces of wood that are glued together or screwed together in various ways. So I basically try to do things in a simple way. I don't consider myself a craftsman. I'm constantly using putty and paint to cover my mistakes, but it's a it's a lifelong endeavor, and I feel like I need to do it every day to feel any kind of well-being. So it's a lot of fun. I get that question a lot. That's a hard one to answer, and my hesitation, and hopefully will be edited out of this videotape. I think that there's certain pieces that appeal to me for one reason or another. A certain part of it might be effective. I especially like the guitar shape. I mean, when you're looking at these pieces here, you can see that one of my great inspirations is guitars. I was an early follower of rock and roll music in my life. When I say early, I meant as soon as I could get out of the house, I was going to concerts, and so the guitar image was always an inspiration. And then growing up again in the Museum of Modern Art, Picasso had his sheet metal guitar on display when I was a teenager, and I used to love looking at that. So anything with a guitar in it is generally something I like a lot. But as far as a favorite goes, most of the time it's the thing that I've done most recently. I mean, this piece in front of me, Monument Number 1, is just very freshly finished. I finished this in a couple of weeks ago, actually, and so I'm still thinking about this format, this kind of architectural relief, kind of like a shrine. And I'm thinking of a new piece. I'm working on a new piece that's in the drawing stages right now that's going to be about this size, and it's going to be a similar complexity. So that one is certainly important. But I think the idea is that every piece is a representative of a imagery that even though it's made into a concrete form, it still is just one glimpse of this river of images that flows through me, and I feel that my job is to be as true to that flow as possible. This image over here, which I'm calling 120 page, which is a collection of all these hieroglyphic-like shapes I call them the new shapes that are seen. These images pop up in many other images. So if you look at that piece and those two pieces and these pieces and over here and those pieces over there, you'll see the images that are in that series. So the imagery interplays. It comes into one image and then it comes into another image. But it's kind of funny because there's a whole other body of work that this interchange has not penetrated, and I'm trying with this show to have a way of getting them close together, and that other body of work I'm referring to is the Woodcut Narratives. So just as with the carvings, they have a certain aesthetic, a certain look to them because of the color and the textures. With the Woodcut Narratives, it looks completely different. It's black and white. They're small images. Sometimes there are specific stories that are involved. I have a series called Torah for the Eyes, which are illustrations of the 5 books of Moses. That's the only time that I've taken on someone else's text. But for my other projects, I have a large project here that took three years called On the Fence. Those images on the long wall there tell a story about terrorism and trying to come to grips as an American Jew from this point in time and space on this sort of world of insanity. So that is a whole other stream. So there's a couple of different things going on in the show. Well, the best thing about being an artist is that you get energy from working, and you get a sense of spirit from coming from outside yourself, but it's really coming from inside yourself. So sometimes I get the feeling that there's a voice. It's not as if I hear a voice, but I feel that there is a spirit or a voice giving me ideas, encouraging me, giving me energy. And I get energy from looking at art. It all comes from the world. It's not so much that I feel like I can work in a vacuum. I need to be stimulated. I'm stimulated by other art, but I'm also stimulated by the work that I've done. And being an artist is about looking for a new method, a new object that's going to keep that energy flowing. And when I say new, I don't mean original. I don't mean new and original. I mean, I often will wonder why I made something. But when it's not about always being right, it's not about trying to be perfect. It's about keeping going. It's about keeping the flow going, even if sometimes you make something that isn't as successful as something else. So I think there's a payback that I get from just sitting down and making something, and it's calming, it's meditative, it's peaceful. And then when the thing is made, when it's existing there, it has a life of its own, and it's not like a person, but it has an energy that's coming out of it that's similar to a personality. So a work of art is it's almost like a dynamo. It's an energy emitting object. And if you're sensitive to art, and artists are sensitive to art, you get energy from it. So to me, it's about energy. I think the worst thing about being an artist is that it can be a selfish activity. You're so focused on making work and doing what you want to do, and making a thing, making an object, making a painting, that you tend to lose sight of other people. Sometimes you lose connection. You can be distant. And that I think every artist who has a family or has friends or wants to be interacting with people has to find the balance. You need that direction. You need that focus. You need to give yourself permission to put value into making art because nobody else is going to. So you want to make sure that you value it yourself. But on the other hand, I need other people. I need my family. I need my wife. I need my kids. And so I'm trying to find a balance to that, and I don't always do well with that. I have regrets in that department. But who doesn't have regrets? Well, I think there is a purpose to life. I think that we are here for a reason. I think every person has to come up with their role in life. I don't think life is about just the basic physical bodily impulses. I think life is about the spirit and trying to find a spiritual path so that you can add to the world. You know, you can give more than you get. I think if you're an artist, and it doesn't matter what kind of art form you're involved with, whether it's music or dance or writing or any kind of art form, you have the opportunity to take what you're given and put it back out in a new form. It doesn't have to be something that's never done before, but in a way it is something never done before because you're doing it and no one ever existed with your name. You're the only one. So I think there's a role that the artist can play in society, and it's kind of like a shaman. You know, it's kind of like a go-between between the world, the material world, and the artist is someone who works with materials, and the spiritual world. And this could be in a million different varieties. I'm not talking about traditional religion. I'm talking about just the fact that we're human beings. We have this, I believe, in a collective unconscious, a connection to humanity. It goes back hundreds of thousands of years to the beginnings of our species, and art has always been something that people have used to communicate, and we have artworks that are 50,000, 100,000, maybe even 200,000 years old. There's this little thing that looks to me like a pebble in the Israel Museum that's supposedly a carving that goes back 250,000 years. They've dated it. So it's ridiculously old, and I feel connected to that kind of tradition where we have people making stuff, and they don't make it for themselves so much, they make it because they have to make it, and then other people get something out of it. So I feel that, so you know, that's my role. You know, I'm one of those people. I don't mind when people interpret my work differently. I don't think people can help but interpret my work differently. I am not putting out information about what my work means. I may be trying to explain to people how I made it. I believe in being accessible, and I want to help people understand how I come up with ideas, but I don't believe that it's necessary to tell people what it means. I don't know what it means. I don't know what this means. I believe it means colors and forms and images. I see a bird. I see a funny looking guy down there. I see something that looks like an ear or a music note. And what it all means, I have no clue. So I want to hear what people think of it. And I want to know what my work can say to people in their own way, because people can only interpret things from where they are. They come to see my work in a show like this, and they can't help but be themselves. I want them to feel free and think and react to the work, and I don't want to impose my meaning on them. I want to be entertained as much as they do. So when someone's looking at my work and isn't afraid to talk to me about what they think it is, then that's great. I'm looking forward to hearing what people think about it. And as idiosyncratic and different and unique their opinion is, and as different from my thoughts on it, the better. You know, I'm looking forward to hearing what people say about it. Well, I think that when I was younger, I had a lot of self-doubt. I think people at a young age are full of fears and worries and lack of self-confidence, and even someone older has those kinds of negative thoughts. And I think my advice to a young person who's starting out making art is you've got to believe in yourself, you've got to forgive yourself for messing up. You're gonna mess up, you're gonna make mistakes, you're going to go down dead ends and then feel like you have no clue what you're doing. But you always have to go back to energy sources. If you feel that you are getting stuck and you don't know what to do, then take a day off and go to the museum or go to the library and look at stuff and look at other things and talk to other artists and listen to music, because the whole world is pumping out stuff. The whole world is pumping out images and songs and dances, and it's not, you can't have it all in your head. You've got to have a way of getting new thoughts and new ideas, and the world is doing it. And all you have to do is get out of your room and go down there and take a look at it. And then you also need to know how to work. And work isn't always a thoughtful thing. Work is sometimes a hands-on activity. I think your hands can be as smart as your brain. And you need a medium, you need a technique, you need a method. And there's a million different techniques and methods. So you just have to keep trying out different things until you find your instrument. And then you need to stay with it. You put in those 10,000 hours and you play that instrument until you can play it in your sleep. And then you do play it in your sleep. And that is how to be. You know, you need to know when to take a day off, and then after your day off, you need to go to work. And so I think that's what I do tell. I'm a teacher. That's what I tell young artists is you know, what I just told you. I want people to have an open mind when they look at my work. I want them to find some aspect of what I'm doing that is pleasurable. I don't want them to be afraid of having their own interpretation, like I said. I think there's a spirit of fun in my work that it's serious, but it's not serious. It's supposed to be playful. The work comes out of a playful approach. Most of the work in wood carving and most of the three-dimensional work, it comes out of scribbling. And I scribble in a variety of ways. Sometimes I scribble with a pencil. Sometimes I scribble with a computer. You know, and so it comes out of play. So when you look at the work, I want it to be playful. All right, so what I wanted to do here was to talk a little bit about this selection of the Book of There's 24 watercolor paintings here. The Book of is now more than 570 images that started in July of 2011 and is ongoing. I generally work on them very early in the morning before I go to work. And a lot of the carvings that are in the show came out of the Book of The Book of is not a woodcut book. I've got a few different woodcut projects in the show. I got the book called On the Fence. I've got some Torah for the Eyes images, and I've got a woodcut book that's called Boyo, which is in process now. But the Book of is really a sort of a wellspring of imagery, and the first several images up to here were all generated from starting with a format, starting with a size. I even had a window cut out of a piece of mat board, and they literally started with scribbles. So if you could do an x-ray of these paintings, you'll see a scribble underneath there. And then what I would do was start to make images out of the scribbles. So the images that you see are the decisions that I made from the scribbles. The scribbles suggested certain things. Certain images keep coming back. A certain kind of bird man keeps coming back. Sometimes there are other objects like musical instruments or bicycles or other kinds of locomotive devices. Targets, balls, fish, landscapes. But then at a certain point after several months of working this way, and by the way, I started dating them. The dates refer to when the image started, not when it was finished. And I usually spend about a week working on each one. Around here, I started using a different method. Instead of scribbling, I started cutting up magazines. So I would get a muscle magazine or a fashion magazine, and I would cut up the photographs in the magazine and then glue them down. And I tried to create a random kind of approach, and that's where these images came from. And then here I started to scribble on a piece of thicker watercolor paper, and then instead of using a pencil to organize the scribbles, I started using a knife. And then I would make a cutout, a paper cutout, which then formed a template. And then this was the result of tracing the template. And then you could see how the new shapes started to be part of the Book of The new shapes started out as little scribbles inside of pre-made shapes. And then I started using a computer, using Adobe Illustrator to draw them. And then I would generate an image and then transfer it to a watercolor paper. So this was fairly well worked out. Some of it might have originated in scribbles, some of it might have originated on the computer, but it got all put together and then made into a painting. Here you see the new shape as a single image. Here I was using the template again. And then I started scribbling on the computer. So these images all started out as taking a computer, like a laptop, and on the touchpad just moving my finger around in a random way, and then using the program to make it into a more logical image. And that's how things have developed. This last image is something new. I've put away the computer for these for the time being, and I've gone back to making collages that I made here and back in November of 2012, and here we are in 2014, and I'm using the collages as starting points for these images. And then these will end up in the carvings. So this image here, there's a carving over on the other side of the wall there that image led to. This image here, you can see this central part of this image is in this carving over here. So the Book of is a way of thinking for me, and I'm trying to keep open to anything that pops in my mind, anything that shows up on the paper. Oftentimes there's a pattern to the kinds of images that flow past my pencil, and I just want to be open to the possibilities. Okay, this is On the Fence, which is a woodcut series of 81 images that I started in 2009. I had been thinking about Israel and Ahmadinejad. Mahmoud Ahmadinejad was the former president of Iran. Obviously ever since 9/11, we've been living in a world of terrorism. It's something that we weren't prepared for, obviously, before 9/11. And I wanted to use current events or recent history in an image, in a set of images that talked about ambivalence and insanity and things that are hard to explain. An image or a piece of music is not something that can be explained in words. And the woodcut novel format has been something I've used for a long part of my life to do that sort of almost poetic kind of creation of imagery in a certain sequence that might be sequential, they might be a narrative, but can be interpreted, as we were talking before, it can be interpreted in a variety of ways. I have my own set of interpretations, but I'm open to other people's set. So the book starts with an Ahmadinejad-like figure touring his uranium separation facility. This is based on a very crude interpretation of a machine that takes uranium hexafluoride gas and cycles it around, purifies it, and then at the same time he's being hacked. You had that Stuxnet virus that was used to disable uranium production of nuclear weapons. So I'm imagining what would happen if this virus was so powerful that it actually sucks in Ahmadinejad and then spits him out in a completely different time-space vortex. And the place that I have him being spat out in is Israel during the Second Intifada. You may remember that in 2000, a second very violent uprising was launched by Palestinian opponents of the Israeli regime. And if you were Israeli getting on a bus in Jerusalem or Tel Aviv or other cities, you might get blown up. The bus, it says Yerushalayim on the top here, and our protagonist is sitting on this bus and the bus gets blown up. And then that's just the beginning. He survives getting blown up, and he is actually blown up a few more times in the course of the sequence. But the end of the book, he survives, but he doesn't have any answers, and I don't have any answers, and that's why it's called On the Fence, because on the one hand, I'm a supporter of Israel, but on the other hand, I'm a supporter of human rights, and obviously the Palestinian people need to have their own nation and need to be free of restrictions and be able to live the kind of life that anyone else would want to live. So we're on the fence, and that's what's happening on this wall. All right, I wanted to start with the signature panel because it is a good opportunity to show how I work. The small image above the statement is from the Book of and the larger carving is an image that came out of the Book of Obviously, they're not the same image, but there's a process that I engage in to generate imagery. And then once an image is made, no matter what its form, it's usable for a new artwork. A drawing can lead to a painting can lead to a carving could lead to a print can be glued on a carving. Some of my carvings have prints glued on them. So I wanted to start out with a little hint at my work process. Okay, this piece is called Father's Day, and I wanted to mention it because it's actually a precursor to the Book of This is an image that goes back to 2011, prior to early 2011, maybe in 2010, when it was being generated by the same method, but in a less formal way. So the imagery was meant to be free form. I didn't want to constrain it in a rectangle. You can see the guitar image. You can see a bicycle wheel and a sort of morphing green figure holding some kind of fruit-like egg shape. The profile, the blue profile, was a recurring image. I have no idea why it's called Father's Day, to be honest with you. I think I made it around Father's Day. That's the best reason I can give you for why it's called Father's Day. It's made out of many pieces. Most of it is basswood. Basswood is the wood that I carve. It's the kind of wood that's found in carousel horses. There's also plywood, MDF, wooden dowels. It's all glued and screwed together, and it's a fun piece, I think.